Bhagavatha Vahini, Chapter 1. The Bhagavatha. The name Bhagavata can be applied to every account of the experiences of those who have contacted God and the godly, Bhagavan and the Bhaktas. God assumes many forms and enacts many activities, and the name Bhagavata is given to the descriptions of the experiences of those who have realized Him in those forms, and of those who have been blessed by His grace and are chosen as His instruments. The great work known by that name is honored by all masters of the Vedas. It is a panacea which cures physical, mental, and spiritual illnesses. The Bhagavata is saturated with sweetness of nectar. It shines with the splendor of God. The principle of avatar, or the descent of God on earth, the incarnation of the formless with form, is for the uplift of all beings. This is the basic fact that makes the Bhagavata authentic. By Bhagavata, we also mean those with attachment to God, those who seek the companionship of God. For such, the book Bhagavata is most precious. It is the breath of their life. To be in the midst of such Bhagavatas is to foster one's own devotion. Unless you have a taste for Godward thoughts, you will not derive joy therefrom. To create that taste, the Bhagavata relates stories relating to incarnations to the earnest inquirer. Then, one develops the yearning to experience the thrill of God through all the levels of consciousness. He who has intense yearning can be a true Bhagavata. People believe that incarnations of God happen only for two reasons: the punishment of the wicked and the protection of the righteous. But those represent only one aspect of the task: the granting of peace and joy, of a sense of fulfillment to the seekers who have striven long. This too is the task. The avatar is only the concretization of the yearning of the seekers. It is the solidified sweetness of the devotion of godly aspirants. The formless assumes the form for the sake of these aspirants and seekers. They are the prime cause. The cow secretes milk for the sustenance of the calf. The calf is the chief beneficiary, but as we see, others too benefit from that milk. So too, though the bhaktas, devotees, are the prime cause and their joy and sustenance the prime purpose, other incidental benefits also accrue, such as the fostering of dharma and the suppression of the evil. There is no compulsive rule that incarnation should occur only on earth, and that too in human form. Any place, any form can be chosen by the fully free. Whichever place, whatever form promotes the purpose of fulfilling the yearnings of the devotee, that place and that form are chosen by the will of God. God is above and beyond the limits of time and space. He is beyond all characteristics and qualities. No list of such can describe Him fully. For Him, all beings are equal. The difference between man, bird, beast, worm, insect, and even a god is but a difference of the vessel, that is the upadhi. It is like the electric current that flows through various contrivances and expresses itself in many different activities. There is no distinction in the current. It is the same. To speak of it as different is to reveal one's ignorance, that is ajnana. So too, the one single God activates every vessel, or upadhi, and gives rise to manifold consequences. The wise see only the one uniform current. The ignorant feel that they are all distinct. God appreciates the consciousness of unity as the basic motive of acts. He does not appreciate the activity itself being one, without variety. It is suited to the various needs. The fruits of karma or activity appeal only to those who identify themselves with the body, and not for the others who know that they are the inscrutable Atma, the soul, which is the inner motive force in everything. Again, you must know that there is no end to the incarnations that God indulges in. He has come down on countless occasions. Sometimes he comes with a part of his glory, sometimes with a fuller equipment of splendor, sometimes for a particular task, sometimes to transform an entire era of time or an entire continent of space. It is the story of the last of these that the Bhagavata elaborates. The drama enacted by the avatar and the bhaktas, that is the god and the devotee drawn towards him, is the subject matter of the Bhagavata. Listening to it promotes the realization of God. Many sages have testified to its efficacy and extolled the Bhagavata, which they helped preserve for posterity. Generally speaking, man gets drawn to sense objects for he is the victim of instincts. Instincts easily seek sense objects. They come along with the body and are not derived by any training. The infant seeks milk from mother's breast. The newborn calf nestles at the udder. No training is needed for this, but for the infant to walk and talk, some training is necessary. The reason is that they are not automatic. They are socially prompted by example or by imitation of others. Training is essential even for the proper pursuit of sense pleasure, for it is a wild, untrained search for such pleasure that promotes anger, hatred, envy, malice, and conceit. To train them among salutary lines and to hold them under control, certain good disciplines like japa, dhyana, upavasa, sandhya vandanam, recital of name of the Lord, meditation, fasts, worship at dawn and dusk are essential. But however much their value may be praised and their practice recommended, people do not develop a taste for them. This is because the desire for sensory pleasure has struck deep roots in the human heart. When one is asked to do spiritually salutary acts, one has no inner prompting at all. Still, one should not give up in despair. Until the taste sprouts, the disciplines have to be strictly followed. This taste is the result of training, and no one has it from the very beginning. The infant does not know the taste of milk. By taking it daily, it develops an attachment for it which is so deep that when milk is to be given up and rice substituted, it starts to protest. But the mother does not despair. She persuades the child to take small quantities of cooked rice daily, and by this process, the infant starts liking rice and it gives up milk. So milk was once its natural food, but by practice, rice became its natural food, so natural that if no rice is available for a single day, it becomes miserable. So too, though sense pleasures are natural at first, by means of practice, training and listening to the commendation of the wise, slowly the greater and more lasting pleasure derivable from the glories of the Lord and the recapitulation is grasped. Thereafter, one cannot exist without that atmosphere even for a minute. One feels that there is nothing as sweet as the experience of listening to the splendor of the Lord. The company of the worldly who chatter about the senses and the sense objects will no longer attract. The company which exults in praising the Lord will draw and hold. This is the real hallmark of the good. Spiritual aspirants of the Lord are to be judged by these, not by external apparel or appearances. If one mixes with men who revel in sensory talk and activities, then he puts himself out of court. Spend your time in the company of the godly, engaged in godly affairs. Avoid getting mixed with the company of the ungodly. Do not see their activities or listen to their accounts. Only those who avoid them can be called Bhagavata, or God's own. Reading and enjoying the stories of the glory of Krishna in some sacred spot or some temple or prayer hall shrine or hermitage of a saint or sage, or in the company of the virtuous and the good, that is a source of great inspiration and joy. It makes people forget everything else. Else, one can approach pious men and serving them, listening to their exposition of the glories of God. Taste for such wholesome literature is a result of accumulated merit and endeavor. It is that merit that rewards one with such company. Listening will be enough in the beginning. Later, the stories will arouse interest in the nature and characteristics of God, and the aspirant will seek and find for himself the path to realization. Listening to the expositions of the wise is much better than reading oneself, or one can be looking into the text while listening. It is preferable to listen in company rather than alone. Of course, it is excellent to listen with a number of earnest aspirants. If the person who expounds has had the thrill of genuine experience, then it is the most supreme luck, for it yields best results. For his face will blossom into joy, his eyes will shed tears of joy at the very contemplation of the glory of the Lord. Those who listen to him will catch that inspiration. They will experience the joy themselves. In the midst of a group that weeps, tears will spring out of the eyes of those who have come in. When an infant smiles, those around will also smile in unison. So too, the words of those who are saturated with devotion to God will saturate the hearts of those who listen. It is impossible to measure the profit that one can derive while in the company of the great. Through that process of listening, a dirt-laden heart will be transformed into a clean, illumined heart shining with genuine light. To the foul odors of sense pursuits, keenness to listen to the glories of God is a valuable disinfectant, besides being in itself so full of sweet fragrance. The listening will cleanse the heart through the prompting it gives for good work. Such a cleansed heart is a most appropriate altar. In that fragrant altar, the Lord will establish himself. At that very moment, another incident too will happen. The group of 6 vices that had infested the place will quit without so much as a farewell. When these vices quit, the wicked retinue of evil tendencies and vulgar attitudes which live on them will break their camp and disappear without leaving even their addresses. Then man will shine in his native splendor of truth and love, satya and prema. He will endeavor without hindrance to realize himself, and finally he will succeed in merging with the universal and eternal. He will liberate himself from the tangle of ignorance, Maya. His mind will fade away. The long-hidden secret will be revealed to him. He will discover his Madhavatva, that is divinity. Man's nature is prema, love. He cannot survive a moment when deprived of love. It is the very breath of his life. When the 6 vices to which he was attached so long disappear, love is the only occupant of the heart. But love has to find an object, a loved one. It cannot be alone, so it is directed to the dark blue, divine child, the charming cowherd boy who is purity personified, who is the embodiment of service, sacrifice and selflessness, who has taken the residence in that cleansed altar. There is no scope now for any other attachment to grow. So, step by step, this love for Madhava becomes deeper, purer, and more self-denying, until at last there is no need for thought and the individual is merged in the universal. When Vasudeva enters the heart of man, Vasudeva has no longer a place therein. In other words, when the Deva of Vasu, or wealth, is seated in the heart, the divine Vasudeva, Krishna, cannot dwell therein. Any attempt to accommodate both in the heart is bound to fail. Darkness and light cannot exist at the same time in the same place. They cannot continue together. Dhanam and Devam cannot be joint ideals. When Dhanam or riches are sought, Devam or God cannot also be achieved. If both are sought by man, what he will achieve will be neither Dhanam nor Devam, but Dayam, the devil. It is creditable if man behaves as man, but it is laudable if he behaves as the Madhava, who he really is. But to behave as a demon or a beast is despicable indeed, for man was long born a mineral, and died a mineral. Then he promoted himself as a tree. He was long born a tree, and died as a tree, but in the process he got promoted as an animal. But he has now risen into the status of man. This rise from one scale to another has been acknowledged by science and spiritual experience. But today he is born as man and dies as man. It is a greater shame if he slides into the beast or a beastly ogre. Praise is his due only if he rises to divine status. That is real fulfillment of his destiny. Therefore, avoid contact with vices, develop attachment to virtues, transmute the heart into an altar for the Lord, destroy all the shoots and sprouts of desire, and then your Manasa Sarovara, the lake of your inner consciousness, will be sublimated into Kshira Sagara, the pure ocean milk wherein the Lord reclines on the serpent couch. Your real self will, like the celestial Hamsa, swan, revel in the placid waters of that lake, thus transformed. It will discover endless delight. Who can mark the beginning of the continuous waves of the ocean? It is an impossible task. If one desires to be so, the wave with which he starts the calculation will be considered as a beginning. The wave with which he stops his calculation will be for him the last, the end. There is a beginning and an end for his count, but there is no beginning or an end for the process. No one can visualize either in that boundless, illimitable expanse. God's glory is the shoreless ocean. When one starts describing it, it begins for him. When he finishes his description, it is the end, so far as he is concerned. But God's glory is beyond space and time. Only little minds, limited minds, will argue that God's glory has a beginning and an end. The stage on which he plays his Leelas has no boundaries. The story of his Leela is all nectar. It has no other component, no other taste, and no other content. Everyone can drink his fill from any part of that ocean of nectar. The same sweetness exists everywhere, in every particle. There is nothing inferior to mar this sweetness. Sugar is sweet when eaten during day or during the night, for it is a night or day for the person who eats, not for the sugar. Sugar behaves uniformly always. The love of God and the love for God are both eternally sweet and pure, whatever the method of your accepting and attaining them. Such love is holy and inspiring.
Sairam. Sairam. So this was the end of chapter 1. So now we will begin our discussion. Of course, we don't have too much time, so how much ever we can do, we will. My first thought was to kind of just put the questions in, but I thought maybe it'll be, we'll be lost in what all was said in the chapter. So I did put a little piece of where I'm getting this question from. And I don't think I need to read it right away, but for following sessions, definitely we'll read the little para before we move on. But my first question is, what did Swami say about who values the Bhagavata? Swami said, not everyone will value the Bhagavata. There is uh, there is a there is a reason why you as a person values the Bhagavata. In the first para, I think in the first page actually, he said that you can only develop the yearning for listening to the stories of the God, and that's when you will develop. That is when you will value that story. Okay, there is one thing to value the story, and there is one thing to become the Bhagavata. He also said that and I thought that was new for me. I never thought of Bhagavata as persons. So yeah, with that, if anyone has anything to add here. Oh. Okay. So Swami has said here that unless you have the taste for Godward thoughts, you will not derive joy therefrom. Why do you think that is? Why do we need to have Godward thoughts? We have always listened to stories, but obviously, how? Why is it that we need to have the taste?
Yep, Sarah. So if I don't taste it, like if I cannot really tell like what exactly the taste looks like. It's the same thing. Like if I really want to understand what is the godliness and all those things, I really have to go this. And also it also tells like okay, the Bhagavatas and all those things. It is all about a maturity is what I feel it like. People who are really matured can only talk and who can really understand these things. They can only value that. Then they can become the Bhagavatas to pass on this information or like to continue it to the next levels. But I feel like the whole thing after hearing to the whole chapter, I believe like a highly mature person can only write this thing, thinking it the incarnation of the God cannot be in the form of the God. It can be in any form also. It could be any form, like which we always don't even have a imagination to think about that. Oh, incarnation can be in the form of water or a different matter or a different imagination. See, it is totally a beyond way of understanding. The person who has written this thing has really reached to that level, and we all know that like our IQs have been like still we feel like oh Einstein's IQ after inventing so many things, his IQ has been used like less than 2%. So think about us like okay, it's a 0.000. So we are not even there. So to think beyond this thing, definitely this is a different journey. We all have to go through that. And in this journey, we might be seeing a lot of things in the
So Sairam, I don't know where. Oh, it's there. Um, we see, um, for example, we see a lot of movies. This we can all relate to. Who has not seen movies? Or does every movie touch you in a way? No, right? Only some will make an impact on you. And which are the ones that make an impact? And if you really think deeply, it is something that a subject matter that you care deeply about. Only then it makes an impact and you start thinking and you get moved. For example, for someone, it could be something about like, education or more like what people get moved is if there is a child abuse. It used to get me all the time when I was small. Also, I used to see these Japanese movies where the kids are orphans and they go through the toughest times. They have step parents, and I used to cry so much looking, because for me it felt the worst thing that can happen is someone being cruel to a child. So every time I see a movie, it moves me because I see it with that kind of uh, effect on my mind, passion. So same thing applies. If you're not fully like hearing to these stories with a full yearning and wanting to learn, wanting to change it, it won't make any impact. It'll be like any other movie that you saw and went, heard and went. It just goes on. Your life goes on again, same way. So I think that's what they're talking about. You have to approach it with that attitude. Only then it will make an impact.
Saira, I think we have to have the taste for it, because unless we taste that Swami's stories or whatever it is, we cannot develop that attachment to it. Like they gave the example of a child. Child doesn't know the taste of the milk. Then when she feeds the milk, then it gets attached to the milk. He doesn't want the rice later, but then he gets used to the rice. Then he cries for the rice. Similarly, when we have that taste for all these godly things, I mean, God stories, and we keep listening, we develop that attachment to God. So our goal is to have that attachment to God. So we go closer to the God and not to the all the worldly things, senses.
Yeah, Saira, I think one of the statements he made was, sense pleasure is natural, so that we don't have to be training ourselves. So it is very easy to go for that. Whereas, we know that that is not going to lead us anywhere. And in order for us to go to the advanced progress, we need that, you need a catalyst. And I think listening to and attaching to these are the catalysts that will, we all have that aching. We have seen cases after cases where very successful people, who have all the money and everything, suddenly say, this is not what I want. And so that spiritual, you know, that is always there, unless, the mind is totally dead. And, in that case, nothing can be done. But so I think that yearning is something that we have to develop. If you are pursuing that, we have to see and seek people who have seen it.
So with the same question then, why does everyone not enjoy it? Right?
So for me, being in the midst of such Bhagavatas fosters one's own devotion. That stood out for me because it's very simple, right? Like, for example, when you sit with a group of kids who are studying, you study a lot. When you are with a group of people who are working out and eating right, you automatically want to do that because, that's good for you, that. So similarly, we are all this river. We know that our final destination is that ocean. We know that inside, we know that, but we are kind of, all the other things are blocking it. But when you are with a group of those people, automatically your brain starts, tuning to that. And then you eventually, as you said, the thoughts, constantly we are aware of what is going on. And I think, and then slowly you start enjoying it, right? Now, when a person who is eating really well and you start giving them fried, they cannot digest it. They cannot, it upsets their stomach. Similarly, when you start doing this, automatically your aversion to the worldly things slowly start happening.
Sarah, one small thing, like, because see, one thing we are saying is like, okay, when we are in the same group, we will be trying to learn that habits and all those things. In a recent trip for me, say, what I understood is like the alligators and the crocodiles cannot live in the same water. So one thing is like, it's a something, it's been created that cannot exist together. So even if there will be some good people, bad people, if you think that like, okay, we all have to change this thing. If you bring the bad people into the good people group, do they really change? Does the alligator live in the waters what the crocodile lives, or like in this crocodile lives into the waters of the alligator? I'm really surprised. Like, if that is the case, like, we can all bring everything into some good, uh, what is that, like quote and then make it a change. I don't think so. Like it's been created that way.
Yeah, that is the thing. You can bring the horse to the water, but the horse has to drink it. We cannot drink it for it. Like, there are
See-
good things happening, but there are other things happening also. So it is our choice. You want to be here or any satsang or any good things, or you want to go party or movie or do something else, it's up to us. So that is the training again. See, he says in that the cow, it secretes milk for the calf, but others benefit from it. Same way, by reading these Bhagavatas or the Puranas, the stories that one particular bhakta, he was worshipping God so intensely, he benefited. Listening to it like the cow's milk, we can also benefit from listening to all the stories and attending.
No,
So
absolutely.
it's only for us to develop.
Absolutely, I do agree that
Yeah,
thing. But
yeah.
at the same time, like what I feel is like, see, you cannot appreciate a good without even knowing a bad.
Yeah.
So that is exactly like what I feel is like, the God has created both an evil and a
Mhm.
goodness on the earth, like to showcase like what is the difference between these things. And if we really want to eradicate or like remove all, erase the whole bad, probably we will not even appreciate what is good also. We will be in that
No.
state.
Yeah.
The-
Yeah.
Goal is not to eradicate anything. Our goal is only about ourselves.
journey-
What
journey-
others will do is up to them.
No,
So
no.
our goal is not to eradicate evil, change bad people into good people. That is up to that person, that his individual journey that he'll decide. So the alligators and crocodiles, we can also give many examples of animals that usually may not coexist, but then when they're given a chance to coexist, they will behave like the other animal. So many instances we see, right? Like a dog raised by a cow, or a calf raised by a dog, or something. It's spent all its life with this person, that they identify with that person. So same thing happens in the good company. You may not drastically change, but some change will happen. That is that is the power of prayers too. Why sitting here and doing collective prayers? Why do we think a good thing will happen somewhere in the universe? Because that vibration goes and changes in small degrees, not in a radical way. Today, because I'm praying, I don't think Ukraine war will end today night, because we all prayed ba 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 ba. No, but that small changes, small things eventually will change big minds, and then eventually some change will happen. I think that's what at least we have to believe in, right? That's the least thing we can do. Whether it happens or not, what can I do in my hands is reform myself, reach the ideals that I've set for myself, and do that. That's it. If somebody else changes because of that, that's good. If they don't, it's not my problem, my issue, right? It's their thing. They will lead their own karma.
See, I feel we have been on Baba path for a long time. Many years we have been following. Eh? We did put our mind and heart, energy, everything towards that one goal. So many years. And if we had not done that, all of us would say, Acha, theek hai, there's a Baba somewhere, it's okay. And there are lots of Babas in India anyway, one more, so what? So it would have been just like that. But we did not. We did put all our heart, energy, everything we had towards Swami. And we now we enjoy talking about it, reading his story or anything. Anybody had an experience and we enjoy it because we now like it. So on that, if we have to be on God path to enjoy something like Bhagavata, if you want to read Bhagavatam, if you're not interested in God, you'll say, hey, what is the use of these stories? There's no use. You may not like. You'd rather go and buy something or enjoy different kind of buying outside or going other traveling and so on. Fine, it's okay, nothing wrong with it. But if we have an interest in Baba, in Godward interest, that is what we need, wholehearted Godward interest. How we get it is a different story, but we need it.
So that means that you have to develop the yearning. It doesn't just come.
No, you have to work towards it. You have to work. But you don't have to force it. But slowly, slowly, as you are moving, enjoying it little by little, you have experienced this. Ah, that's nice. And you read about it. You start walking that path. Then you start liking. It won't come all by itself. Somebody is going to open a door of your head, say, I'm Godward. Not like that. We have to put, and we have done it. All of us, aren't we walking Baba path for so long now, so many years, slowly, having experiences, ups and down, everything. But we are still walking towards, and we enjoy everything about it. So this is the way, yes, inward journey is very important to enjoy all this thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you see Bhagavad Gita, they talk about 4 types of devotees. There are, one type of devotee who thinks about God only when he's in trouble. And then, you have this progression all the way to, yeah. So that occurs to everyone, So this is a progression. Initially, you only go through that. And then, you get to a point, there must be something more. And then you look for the spiritual part of it, and that yearning comes. And then you go, and it is at that point that we begin to see what are the experiences of other people. So it may not be something that will come to everyone, and some might come and end their journey in this planet without even thinking anything about this. So I think that's what his question was about. I think there will be some people who will not be interested at all.
See, that is the thing. So what I want to say was that opportunity to become a Bhagavata. I know it's an effort. That is for everybody. That opportunity is there because that same divinity is resident in every living thing and non-living thing. That opportunity is always there. It's their choice. But desires definitely are there because Swami says that we are all born with, that is innate. The moment the life is there, that desires are always there. So the choice is between that or between the training that you have to go through and realize that these are all not. So that it definitely to become a Bhagavata is an effort. But that opportunity, I think, is there for everybody. That is what I think.
In fact, it's there even for the non-living things. The stone that is picked to carve a divine image, even those stones are said to be divine stones. They must have gone through some weathering that they are now ready to be carved. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
The thing is that for that person, I mean, who may not have been experienced with anything to do with God, there will be something happening in their life at some point. And then that is the time they can decide whether they want to put in an effort. For example, we have read so many stories in our own Hindu mythology where the thief turns into such a spiritual person and then becomes a monk. So that Angulimala in Buddhism, that is a thing. Valmiki. So there are so many examples. So and that opportunity will come in their lifetime. And at that time, whether they want to pursue that route or to continue with their desires is up to them.
Okay, so this is what like a devil's advocate. So that opportunity comes. So what makes for some people to grab it, some people to let go, not even aware of it? Is it a divine intervention that some, super something is pushing you in that direction or opening your eyes, so to speak, to grab that opportunity?
So
right?
in this one, there was about this, I don't remember exactly what they said, but bhakta and the richness, rich, they do not go together. Wealth, this one do not go together, right? And then right. So I was immediately reminded of one person in this reason. He is a multi-millionaire son. He left everything and went into this Buddhism and then as a monk. And at that time I was thinking, if God says, okay, come, now give away all the wealth, will I be able to do that? So I'm a part-time devotee. I'm not there fully. I'm not he says, dive, plunge into this ocean. Will I plunge into that ocean? So still not there. So forget about other people who are, not there. I am still a part-time devotee. And for me, first, as she said, I need to look into this and become a full-time devotee, no matter what. And that is my sadhana. And that's so hard for me. It is the hardest part.
But it is not for everyone. That is the-
So
that is
no,
the
and
thing.
so
Yeah.
I think this question comes up all the time: free will or God's will, free will or God. And we have come across this all the time. I think of it like this: there is definitely God's will because we believe in rebirth, we believe in reincarnations. We know like our Purvajanma things will come over. But why did God give you one more opportunity? He gave you an opportunity with this birth. So if you don't exert your free will in the right way, you're going to waste this again. So if we think it's all God will, a lot of times we may take the easy route and say, anyway, it'll happen with God's the way God wants. Then why put the effort, right? You don't have to put the effort. It'll happen anyway, one way or the other, the way God wants it. But I don't look at, I mean, I think most people will agree with this. He has given us an opportunity and he's telling us all these things. We are exposed to this. For people who are not exposed also, he will tell in his own way. Nature will teach, or somebody else will say something. Something will happen. Not just Hindus, Christians, everywhere around the world. You have to keep your eyes and ears open and receive it and be willing to change yourself and go that way. I feel it's a combination of both.
Okay. I think that we're all of us, the people on earth at this time, we're all at different levels. We, we have evolved and everybody has a different past. And it is kind of up to each individual with their past conditioning. When you take a birth, you get conditioned by your parents and you get conditioned. Most people get conditioned to worldly things, toys as a child. This is mine, not yours. And so, and they don't even know they're not the body. And they don't, so how are they going to get attached to anything? So only when people, because they have different tendencies based on where they were even before this previous life, then they will do different things. And so everybody's just not going to be at the same level. And some people will be open, some people will not be. And that's why we live in a world with such conflict now.
Yeah,
So-
I totally agree. I just have this thing when I read this, and that's why the question came up, because for me, yearning should be for everyone, but it's not, because we are all so according to Swami, we are all, the man is born to realize his divinity, but it's not the same. Even it may be the same kind of rearing, as a child we've grown up in the same families, but it's not the same. So how? Yeah.
Sairam, a quick thing. When you say yearning, what exactly yearning is? Yearning for God is one thing. If you really believe that God is resident in us, then if you act according to the conscience, then you are following the voice of God. So that yearning doesn't mean something that is beyond something. So when between following the voice of God, that is the voice of your consciousness, versus you will know that your own heart will say, or your conscience will prick you. If you do something, for example, a thief goes and steals something, do you think he's going to be very happy stealing that thing? I'm sure the conscience will pick. He decides to steal. because of so many other pressures, maybe the desires, or maybe his habit, maybe he is not exposed to something following. So there are so many other factors, but I think that is what. So yearning doesn't mean to always be in the path of like us, like meaning in the satsang, in listening to Swami's discourse. That is Bhagavata. But Bhagavata is, I think, a person who is following the conscience strictly and not falling prey to that desires. I think that's what
I just want to add it in the similar way. See, I think like all these different statements, whether it's good, bad, and all these things have been instilled. And some of these things in terms of the computer language or whatever it is, how it is happening is this might happen in a synchronous way, or like sequentially all these events might happen, whether it's good or bad and all. Some might be asynchronous. If it is really a good events happen, he might become as a Bhagavata, because he all the good events happen, then he will be exiting out of that loop of really reaching out to the bad things, probably like that way. Like, and the other thing is like, okay, we all will feel that like, okay, the rebirth, if everything has been instilled, probably like there is a one more chance for him to get into the loop to really go through the other different statements or like different things that he has to perform in this world. That's why I feel like that, if I'm understanding it, okay, that is the reason, like, okay, unless each and every different events that are being instilled in the man, till that rebirth keeps up happening, it till he exits out of that loops. So that way, that might be.
Yeah. So do you have a minute? Okay. I'm reminded of one of my cousin's wives who asked this question about 23 years ago. Uh, my cousin was in coma, and eventually he passed. Uh, so, his brother happens to be a Swami devotee for many, many years. And so at the time when he was in the hospital in coma, so he took a letter and then, took it to Puttaparthi. And so this lady was, on the wall, believe, not believe, and, all these things. But uh, so he took it, and then the letter was accepted. So right about that time, I had gone to Puttaparthi and come for the 75th birthday. And so I came back, and, so she asked me to go, what does that mean? You know, and then by this time he has passed. So what does this mean? So I said, I suppose it's good. The fact that he has found a better life for him, something. Here we are, I don't know anything about anything, and I'm stuck now. And, so what is the good thing about this? And I hadn't, even today, I have a very difficult time to think about how to answer a question like that. So you are asking about two different of people, you're hearing this satsang and all these things, and it's good for you. And then you also see, a group of people who can, actually question you or your own belief. And if I 23 years later, when I think about it, I think her life turned out to be a lot better. I think she was given the courage to handle, everything on her own. And I think eventually it has, but at that moment, I cannot answer that question, how to, there are people like that there. When you're going through that, you cannot be talking about God and everything when they are in that situation.
Again, I think sorry. Again, I come back to the same thing. It's not for everyone. Unless you are built or build yourself up to it, you cannot really answer that question ourselves or listen to the answer. We have to have that open-mindedness to listen during that time. When we are actually going through the toughest of times is when we need such advice and such a direction. Not everyone can listen. Yes, please go ahead. Sabita.
Please.
see that.
No, we see this every day as physicians. I've seen it all the time, every single day of my life. So for you, the death of a relative is a bad thing, and it's because you're young, your husband. It could be your child. It could have been your sister, it could have been a brother, but that is life, right? Instead of thinking of it, yeah, when they're going through the throes of that sadness, it feels like it. But you know that this can happen to anyone. That's the point of Bhagavata, right? That's why he said it happens. And that's what we should say too, right? This is what life is. You could have a pet could, I mean, it's how you have to go. And if your mind is on the right path, it is easier to, get past those things. But if you're attached to the worldly things, you're attached to your husband, attached to your house, any loss will be a severe loss for you, not just the husband. Even the loss of your vehicle, even the loss of anything that is dear to you will feel terrible to you.
I would go back to early 80s. I had not yet gone to Puttaparthi. I had just heard of Baba. It was all in the mind. In Texas, I was. And I had a dream. In that dream, there were 2 rows of people sitting, and Baba was in front there somewhere. And I had not seen Baba, and it was a totally new thingy. And I was about a 6, 7-year-old child, probably a girl, 6, 7 years, very small. And I was behind the 2 rows. And then Baba said from there, that this is a dream. Baba said from there, she has waited a long time, let her come. Let her come through. She has waited a long, long time. So these people, they just parted. I can still see it. Then I just went, and up there, that was the dream. That's all. So what makes me feel is it's karmic also. It's karmic also. When the time is for whom, how, that it's so clear in my mind that 80s, beginning 80s sometimes. I feel it's a karmic. There's a big factor in it. Let's put it that way. Yeah?
Sairam, the thing is, I think that time, that opportunity need not happen in one lifetime. It can happen through many lifetimes. I mean, we believe in rebirth, reincarnation. That, yeah. Yeah. See, coming to that Shankaran's, I mean, that story, it's very difficult to tell somebody when they are going through, even though you're not the affected person, you're a little bit, so that Swami is taking a letter means something. So in the episode that I shared last week or so, the person drowns in Tirupati, and then Swami, at that time, the mother doesn't go to Puttaparthi and ask immediately Swami. I mean, like, she goes after 8 years. And then when Swami gives an interview, and then she asks that question, Swami says that that is his last birth, and that was his desire, only desire. So I think we don't know the purpose. We don't know the purpose. So I think.
So yeah, we are actually, we only have 2 more minutes. Yes, please go ahead, Sabita, please.
So just kind of, for me, recapping different people's. So Shalene said everybody's in a different journey. Agreed. The yearning. If none of us yearn for this, we would not be sitting here. Right? 2006, just real quick, I think this question was asked earlier. I came to Swami. I've always known about Satya Sai Baba. There was always Shirdi Baba's picture in my aunt's house because of my cousin who died. He had polio, and he always believed in Shirdi Baba. But there was always this want, because like all my Christian friends went to Bible study. There was nothing like that for Hindus, right? Even I go to the temple, there was nothing. Growing up there, nobody ever said you go to the structured place, because my family wasn't into Swami or anything like that. So that's the thing. And then all of a sudden, just different events, somehow it came, and then I came into the fold. So 2 things for me. One, I had that yearning. I was looking for something, and then somehow it came, and then the time was right. So Swami placed me in that. So to me, all these questions, so even if I get 5%, or even if I understood 1% of what today is, I'm going to go home and read this again. I may not understand everything, but at least I'm not better, a little bit more knowledgeable. Like Shobha said, or somebody said, like, we were given this opportunity, right? So we're coming back to this life over and over again because we didn't get it right. We may view it as a negative thing, but maybe it's also a gift, right? As opposed to, of course, you have the challenges. We brought it, like as Asha said, the karmic thing, but then it's also a gift to, like, okay, I'm learning something more that I didn't learn in my past lives. So I'm given this opportunity. So even if I learned like 1% today, something, I'm better today than I was an hour ago, an hour and a half ago. That's
Great.
how
Yeah.
I feel about
Thank
this
you.
discussion.
Yes, thank you, Sabita. So with that, we are at time. I just wanted to review, just talk about the life application. And so let us practice Namasmarana for 10 minutes every day this week. You can observe and record any changes. Each one of you has a book, and those who are online can either write it on their own. Feel free to share with us. I don't know if this audio is working right now, but even if it is not, we'll definitely communicate that to everyone. 10 minutes every day this week. If you observe any changes, we would like to share only because by sharing, the others would grow too. We are probably on the same path. We all face the same challenges, and some days 10 minutes might seem like one, and sometimes 10 minutes might seem like 20. So so all of that would be a nice way to connect and kind of be partnered in our spiritual progress. And with that, it is the end of session 1. And we will continue the session next week on Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. All right. And we will end with Om and Three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jai Sai Ram. I will send the PDF online to everyone. If people don't know that already, I will send the Bhagavat Vahini PDF in our group as well, and we can paste it. Can we do Brahmarpanam?
Om Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva